Bonjour everyone and welcome back to my channel, The Waves of Your Soul. Today's video is going to be super fun. It's going to be a VR to the hashtag only 10 mass market decks, where I'm going to be presenting to you mass market tarot decks or oracle decks that I would keep if I could only keep 10 of them. Which, let's be real, would only ever happen if someone was threatening me with a knife somewhere to do that, because otherwise that would never be the case. I could never keep only 10 decks, but we're gonna be pretending for the purpose of this exercise, and it was actually fun to try and narrow it down. It's a very late VR to Sia over at Garden Goddess Tarot and Meg over at Rose Honey Ritual. Both fantastic channels, they are both amazing, so definitely go and check them out. I'm gonna leave the links to their channels below. So we've got tarot decks, oracle decks, all mass market. What does mass market means? If you're not sure, it means it's a deck that's produced by publishing companies that you can find in your local bookshop, on Amazon, Book Depository, all of those, libraries, things like that. It means it's not an indie deck, so usually they're easier to find, usually more affordable, although in this economy everything is debatable, and it's just easier to access. Before we get into the deck galore, if it is your first time here, hi, my name is Marine, I'm a French tarot reader, and I'm a lover of everything tarot and oracle related. As you're gonna see from this video, I am always very unhinged and have very limited self-control. So this channel usually shows a lot of decks. Try and apply more self-control today to only pick 10. If you'd like to see any of those on your timeline, make sure to subscribe. You can hit the thumbs up if you enjoy the video, leave me a comment. All of those things definitely help me continue making videos. And in the description box below, you'll find all of the names of the decks I mentioned, as well as all of my other social medias where you can find more of me. So, without further ado, let's get into it. How cute are those frangipani flowers from the garden? They're giving me life. They're all falling now because we're arriving towards the end of summer where I live in Réunion, so the tree is losing its flower, which means more flowers for me. So I'm really loving this extra touch of pink today. So just a little heads up, I did the hashtag only 10 decks that Katie Flowers had launched a couple of years ago, I believe, and where we were supposed to share our choice of tarot and oracle decks. If we could only keep 10, our all-time faves, the best of the best, the all-stars. And because I've already done that, and there was quite a few mass market decks on that list, I decided to not repeat myself. So in this video, I've chosen different decks than the one I did for the only 10 decks general tag. Leave the link to that video up in the cards if you've not seen it. Still stand by all of the mass market decks I picked there. But just to make things different, and because I have a lot of decks and because I don't like choosing out of them, I put here different ones. So I guess ultimately, if I could only keep 20 decks, it would be a combination of today's video and the one I've done as a VR to Katie a couple of years ago. I want to mention was a no-brainer. The way I approach today's video is which decks are the decks I want to keep mass market. If I had to like grab it and run out the house kind of thing, I might change my mind, most likely. Come on, let's be real. I most likely will change my mind in a month, 2 months, but these are the choices true for right now, although I can tell you that for a fact this would pretty much never really make it out of the list because it's such a staple for me. And this is Whispers of the Ocean Oracle cards by Angela Hartfield. This is my Inner Child deck, this is my Ocean Lover deck, this is everything my little inner marine heart could ever dream of, and I adore this. I really like Angela Hartfield's writing. Unfortunately, I think she passed either last year or 2 years ago, and that was super sad because I really enjoy her oracle decks. But I'm so grateful that she left us with such beautiful pieces of work. The artwork by Ekaterina Golovanova is absolutely stunning, and this has a great guidebook. I didn't show you. It's got great messages, but I love about this is that you have messages on the cards too, and so this has to be part of my practice because I use this so much when I just want a little message of healing, a little message of comfort, this does it for me. It hits all the spots. There's so many beings here that I'm so used to seeing in my local environment because I live in the Indian Ocean. We have turtles here. We have all of this. Pretty much. This is the vibe. If I was to go snorkeling now and go to the ocean, in the lagoon, I would go, you don't even have to go far, you don't have to go really deep, you don't even have to go where you can't stand, you can still stand if you're afraid of deep waters, you don't have to go into deep waters, and you're gonna see all those little fishes. You won't see dolphins in the lagoon because there's not enough water, but you might see a turtle or two, and so you'll see dolphins if you go beyond the barrier reef, as well as here we have humpback whales every winter, so pretty much June to September, October, they will come to have their babies here, and then they're gonna go back to the South Pole once their babies are strong enough. I love this, like everything about this, it's just chef's kiss. It just gives me all the good vibes. So this is absolutely a staple. Like, how beautiful is that? I want to work with ocean energy and you are too far away from it. I can't recommend this deck enough. It's wonderful, and the messages are really good. They are really good balance. It's a balanced oracle. It's got really good messages, light, shadow. It doesn't beat around the bush. Let's move on to a tarot deck. This is the Uncommon Tarot by Shaheen Miro, and this is my absolute favorite mass market collage style deck. I find that collage style is usually more preferred by indie artists, or at least that's what I've noticed. Here are the backs, which honestly are the one thing I don't like. It's just meh, you know, like the deck is giving. It's giving collage extravaganza. The backs are the only thing I don't enjoy. The edging is silver. It's really good actually. I've used this deck to death. It's one of my most used decks, and it's not too bad. Like, considering it's a mass market deck and everything, the edging is doing okay. It's not cheaping, so we're good for that. In terms of the artwork, like I was saying, for me, this is the ultimate collage deck for mass market prices, because I have a ton of beautiful indie decks that are collage and I love them. But when people ask me, can you recommend a collage deck that's not indie, I don't have a ton to recommend, especially tarot deck, but this one is the one, and honestly it doesn't disappoint. I think it's beautifully done, very cleverly done. We see different cultures here. There's like some images are collaged with more vintage looking pictures, some are a little bit more modern. Overall, this makes you travel very much. There's a poetic sense to this deck, and I think it is hugely underrated. I've used this a few times in my pick a card readings. I've showed it in my underrated mass market decks from last year, and I still stand by the fact that more people need to talk about this deck because it's amazing. And especially if you're into collage decks, this is the one for me in terms of tarot, modern ones. I know we have the Voyager Tarot, I know we have the Tantric Dakini, that's a collage deck, but that's more like Oracle, and there's the Enchanted something, I forgot the name now, that's coming back up, but they're all like older decks. In terms of newer ones, there's not been a ton of collage decks, I think, at least not to the extent of here where it's like, bam, a category is collage, honey, we have gone wide with the glue gun. And I really enjoy it. So this had to be in my only 10 decks because sometimes I'm in the mood for collage. Also, I can use this to read for others. So I'm thinking if I can only keep 10, I need a deck that I would be happy to pull for anyone, anywhere. This would be it. I would feel very comfortable reading for this for anybody really. On to another staple. I mean, those are all staples, I guess. If I'm keeping them because I can only keep 10, then obviously, you know, those are true workhorses for me. This is the Dark Goddess Tarot by Hélène Lorenzi Prince. It comes in a big box, which is somewhere in my drawer of doom, where I keep a lot of boxes that I tend to downsize, and then I put decks in bags. I really like the back actually, and not a super fan of this gold edging, but I can live with it, and the cards look like this. So this was originally a indie deck and it was picked up mass market, which I'm so happy with. What for me truly makes this deck amazing is the guidebook. This is what you need right here. The guidebook is absolutely fantastic for each of the card because it's the dark goddess, so each card is a different goddess. You'll have the name of the goddess, where she comes from. You'll have a little at the bottom here like a quote or a mantra. So for Pele, we have a passionate heart should not be made tame. Then you have an explanation of who that goddess is. So here Pele is a Hawaiian goddess of fire and the volcano. And right here at the end you have the message, like the guidance from that goddess. So this right here, this short message, this is pure magic. This is a bomb.com, very insightful. This is where the magic is. Of course, it's amazing to find out who the goddesses are, and Ellen does a really good job at giving you a quick summary, even though for me it's never enough, so I usually do my own research anyway, especially if it's a goddess I'm not familiar with. But the messages she writes afterwards, like of guidance and divination, they are so impactful. Some of them feel like you're being slapped back to reality, but it's one of those decks for me that I go to when I'm truly in need of some guidance. I am confused AF, I feel lost, I don't know where I stand. This shows me the way. It often tells me things I don't want to hear, but it's gonna show me the way. So this is extremely valuable in my personal practice. I don't use it as a tarot ever, to be honest. For me, even though it's got 78 cards and it follows the tarot system in the sense that there's major arcanas and suits and everything, I use this as an oracle because each goddess has so much power and potential for teaching you something that 2 to 3 cards is more than enough, and I found that for me it works much better as an oracle. So this is one I like to take my time. If I pull a card, I will usually marinate on it for a couple of days. Last year I even worked with one goddess every month, and that was wonderful. Overall, I can't recommend this enough. If you are even slightly interested in working with the goddess's energy, in learning more about mythology, but also working with the cards in a way that's going to be empowering, sometimes confronting, but very healing, then this is the deck. Talking about decks that will hurt your feelings, but you still want to know more, and also decks that come in a huge box that end up in my drawer of doom. We have the very well-known and very much appreciated in the community, Faery Oracle by Brian Froud. The text is by Jessica Macbeth, and wow, I mean, this is one of those decks that's been out for, I'd say, a good 20 years, I think. At least 10, maybe even 20. I'm not sure, but it's been out there for a while, and for me it still very much holds itself in front of any of the recent decks that's come out. This is just super special. This is a fairy deck. Here are the backs, which I love. I love this artwork so much. You know, Brian Froud's artwork, it's the kind of artwork you will recognize instantly. I love this particular artwork. I have a couple of notebooks actually with this piece on it, and it makes me so happy to journal in them. The cardstock is super thin. The titles sometimes are a little bit hard to read, but it doesn't even matter. I don't even care. This could be on toilet paper, I would still like it, because first, the artwork is so nice, and spread artwork is just absolutely stunning. It's fairies done in a way where it's not beautiful white ladies with wings. It's actually creatures of the forest, and they are wilder and more elemental. And so I really resonate with this idea of fairies. I mean, look at this. It's so poetic and beautiful. So first off, the artwork to die for. And then the guidebook is one of the best guidebooks in terms of oracle decks that I've ever read. Top 3 best guidebooks ever for oracle decks, because this oracle deck will teach you how to read any oracle. One of those where for each card you will have a message. In this case you have keywords, you have upwards message, downwards message. You also have a story about who those characters are, and takes you into that world in such an immersive way and magical way that it's amazing. But what I meant about this will teach you how to read any oracle deck is that at the beginning there are exercises that are offered and teaching you how to connect with this deck that have been incredibly valuable to me and that have informed my practice ever since I read with this deck. So the exercises here on how to connect with the deck, how to immerse yourself into it, how to connect with those beings. You can use that for any of your other decks. There are spreads here, there are tips on how to read for others. There is so much goodness in this book. Like I was saying, for me, one of the best guidebooks ever written. And again, much like the Dark Goddess Tarot, this is one of those that 1 or 2 cards is more than enough. First, because there's so much to get into with each card, like the messages are quite profound and I need to sit with it because I get overwhelmed quite easily. 2, those fairies are kind of trolls. They like to troll you. Not just me, because I've pulled cards from my friends with this, and just be prepared to be trolled hard. Be prepared for your feelings to be hurt. And then when you least expect it, one day they'll be nice to you and you will be like, what is going on? So that's what I love about this deck, is that it can be so truthful, sometimes hurtful, but always honest and always on point. Talking about fairies, this was such a surprise. Seen from the previous deck that I usually enjoy fairies that are more grungy, that have more wildness to them, more elemental. So technically this should not be my jam. And yet, I love this so much. This is a Lo Scarabeo deck. I've got the French version, which is Le Tarot Arc-en-Ciel. You guys told me that in English it's called The Tarot at the End of the Rainbow. It's still Lo Scarabeo. It's very affordable, easy to find. We love it. The backs look like this, and I've edged my copy in green because I've used this deck so much it was already starting to be a bit gross, to be honest. So I had to pick this deck. It was in my favorites from 2022, and ever since I've gotten it, I've not been able to put it down. It's charmed the pants out of me, and I absolutely adore the fantasy, imaginary tale vibes. I usually enjoy fantasy so much. Those are usually the decks that, when I need to escape, when I need to use my imagination, when I need creativity, I will usually go for something that's set in another world or that has that fantasy or sci-fi kind of edge. And this is giving me all the Tolkien vibes. This is giving me magical forest. So it's not just fairies, we have centaurs and we have leprechauns and we have goblins and all of those like magical creatures. I love the knights in this deck. They're so charming. It's always like a little being on an animal. Like there's a badger one, a frog one. They're just super cute. And this is a lot deeper than I thought. At first when I got it, I was just like, this is super cute, this is pretty, there's a rainbow in each card, so that was giving me life. But after using it quite a lot, I realized this can go much deeper than expected. This is full of wisdom, and of course it's full of magic and whimsy. And I love the combination of the two. Look at this 5 of Wands. There's a lot of power in there. Like, even though it could look a bit childlike with fairies and stuff, you can see the defensiveness, you can see the stance, the strength, the perseverance. So there's a lot of depictions in this deck that are a lot more powerful than I expected, and that's why I adore it so much. This is one of my favorite 6 of Swords ever. There's something so daunting and like that gives me the chills about those swords that are actually so huge that they've become statues, and how sometimes when you have to move away from something in your life, it can really feel overwhelming like that. It can feel like you're trying to navigate your way between those huge pillars that have been standing for so long. You forgot that you could move away from them. So this deck has proven to be a lot more insightful than I expected, and it also brings me a lot of joy. One deck that I really did not think would end up in my list, and that only made it once I was standing in front of my shelves and I realized if I don't have this in my life, I would really miss it, is the Tarot de la Nouvelle Vision, which is the French version of Tarot of the New Vision, I believe. Another Lo Scarabeo. I love Lo Scarabeo decks. They are affordable. For me, it's good enough cardstock. Like you can shuffle, you can shuffle any way you want, and they don't get damaged easily. And they're not too pricey. They have a ton of different themes. I just really like Lo Scarabeo decks. I don't really see that many people show it or talk about it. And I think it's a shame because this offers, for me, something that no other deck offers. It's called Tarot of the New Vision because it's an RWS reimagination with a twist. Everything you're saying from the Pamela Coleman Smith deck, you are now in this deck seeing it as if it was turn 180. So here, for the King of Swords, you're seeing what's behind the throne. With the Sun, you're seeing the back of the naked baby. Everything is turn 180. I know that could look a bit gimmicky, thinking how is that gonna add something, but for me this is the ultimate deck when it comes to asking what am I not seeing, and I ask that to myself all the time because I sometimes feel like I'm not seeing the whole of the situation. Sometimes I have troubles being unbiased, especially when I'm doing readings for myself. It's so easy to be biased when you're reading for yourself, and sometimes your head is so deep in a problem that it's very difficult to find perspective, and this deck gives me perspective because it's helping me to see outside of it. It's helping me to step back out of my little box that I've put myself in and think, okay, what am I not seeing? And the way that those cards are represented, it's going to completely transform your normal knowledge of what the Five of Cups or Three of Swords should be. I almost put the After Tarot, which is a similar vibe, except instead of showing you the other side of the card, it shows you what happens after. Out of the two, I think this one is more unique, and I think this one brings something more to my practice. And I use this one a lot as well when I do readings for my friends, or even pick a card readings. It's the perfect deck for me in terms of what are you not seeing. So for example, here we're used to see the Four of Cups as someone who is looking bored, and they're not even seeing the cups that's being handed to them by a genie or God or the universe or whatever. But now you have this Pegasus that's coming flying towards them, and so now you're thinking, well, maybe the fact they don't give a shit about a flying hand holding them a cup is because there's a freaking Pegasus going towards them. Like, that is way cooler than an empty cup. Like, I don't care if it's a floating hands, I much prefer Pegasus over cup, right? Okay, is it because you're not seeing something because there's something even more magical or unique or bigger or bolder that's grabbing your attention? Or if you are not seeing this magic at all in your life and you are feeling super bored and all of that, where is the Pegasus there in your life that you're not seeing? How can you identify it? Can you call it in maybe? So there's a lot here that helps, I think, to give you a new perspective. Sometimes it's very subtle changes, like for example here, with the Seven of Swords, we are seeing he's directing into a castle. Instead of seeing him as a thief, now maybe you're thinking, maybe he's just the guy that's gathering the swords to bring them back to the castle now the battle is over. Yes, he's tiptoeing and he's looking a bit dodgy and guilty, but maybe he's just trying to bring everything back. Or maybe he's truly stealing stuff and trying to bring it back to his lord, like he's working for a king or something, and he's been sent on a mission, but suddenly he's not working on his own. Suddenly he's got a goal in mind. He's trying to like help someone else, or potentially trying to help this king to defend their own castle by stealing the other one's stuff. It just opens your mind now, and you can build stories around it, and you can open your readings about it. When I was doing my picks, I was thinking, what are the oracle decks that I can't see myself without because I use them all the time, or because they have a specific place in my practice? And this is one of them. This is one, again, I got last year, but it's firmly been anchored in my favorites and my practice, and now I use it all the time. It's a French oracle deck, and we have Dog here, Story of My Life, called Or et Ombre, Oracle of Lunar Alchemy, and this is a mass market deck that you can find on Amazon.fr, where you usually can find any of the mass market decks that are French. I love French decks. It was very hard not to include all the French decks here, but because I'm going to continue my French deck series, which, if you have not seen it yet, I do this series on my channel where I show you all of my decks that are from French creators, because I'm French myself. A lot of them are mass market, a lot of them you can find on Amazon.fr. So if you like this kind of content, definitely subscribe, and I'll leave the card to the first video somewhere up in the cards. I think the second episode will be out by the time you're watching this too. And this is one of those for me that's now a tool I couldn't see myself without. So The backs look like this. They are slightly raised, like there's like texture to them, which I love. The blue here is a little bit holographic, and the edges are matte gold. So first of all, the quality for a mass market deck is really good. And this, like the title suggests, is an oracle of lunar alchemy. So we have lunar cycles here, full moon, new moon, waning, waxing. We have alchemical stages like Luna Nigreda and all of that. We have animals that are linked to the alchemical process. We have the planets like Saturn, Venus, which makes this for me the perfect astrological deck to use during the moon, during all of my moon readings. So for full moon, new moons, I love using that. I also love using this for any kind of big events, in terms of if there is a big transition, which I know is happening in the planets, for example, like if there's a Mercury retrograde, or if there's like a big change or something, or if I know it's gonna be the moon in my moon sign. For example, my moon is in Taurus, so if I know now it's the full moon in Taurus, I'm gonna use this deck. So I love it for all of those kind of moments in my practice. But just generally speaking, when I have big questions, because for me this deck is very spiritually led, this is one of those decks I go to. I wouldn't use this deck for a daily card pull, no way, because it's too deep in that sense. There's too much to chew on. But you could. I'm not saying you can't. It's just for me, I like to sit with them. Very magical, very witchy, very alchemical, obviously, and so very esoteric. So if you like that kind of vibe, you would really enjoy this. The guidebook is all in French, obviously, but you've got so much information. It's in color for each card. So here, for example, we have the swan, which is one of the animals represented. You have the keyword, and then you have about 2 pages messages. The messages are so deep and profound, very healing, and very, like I was saying, spiritual and alchemical. So we love that. And then you have keywords. This is definitely a deck that if you don't have any knowledge of French, I would recommend using Google Translate, because this is such a good guidebook. It would be a shame to not read it, even though you could just use the cards, because you see that, for example, this is Jupiter. It would be a shame to pass out on what was written here, in my humble opinion. So if you do want this deck and you don't speak French, just use the Google Translate app. Hey, let's move on to another oracle. We have the Sacred Rebels Oracle by Alana Fairchild. I'm not a huge fan of Alana Fairchild's decks. I only have this one, I think. I had others, I didn't keep them. They just didn't do it for me. This, on the other hand, is amazing. It's unmatched. I've had this for years and I still use it a lot. So it's, to me, stood the test of time, and that's how I know that a deck truly belongs in my top 5, is if I've used it for like 4 or 5 years and it's still going, then you know it's the good stuff. Guidebook is really familiar with Alana Fairchild's guidebooks. You know that she likes to write. She's giving you words and text and War and Peace, honey, and I like it. I like what she has to say in this guidebook. Like I said, her other decks didn't resonate with, but this guidebook is excellent. It's called the Sacred Rebels Oracle, and it's all about creativity. It's all about challenging the status quo. It's all about nurturing your inner fire. And as an Aries, this is everything. This is a fire deck, very much so, because it's inciting you to stand up for yourself, to stand strong, to remember your fears, and to connect with your spirituality in a way that's empowering. So I really love that. And of course, the images are beautiful. Autumn Sky Morrison's has done an amazing job. This is one of the most beautiful decks I own, I think, in terms of how much you can get just from the artwork. I get so much intuitively before I even get into the guidebook. And look at that. I would love this piece in my home. It's as an art piece. It's so beautiful. Like I said, it stood the test of time for me. It's one of those I've used for so long. I am hesitating about, I've seen some people trim the borders, and I am tempted, because my borders are starting to be a bit, my edges are starting to get a bit dirty, and I think it would look really good with the borders trimmed. But I do like the fact that it's different colors borders, so I don't know. I need your opinion, guys. What do you think I should do? Should I remove the borders or no? What do you think? Because the backs, it would not matter, because the backs have a border too. So I don't know what you think. I need your opinion. I'm 50-50 right now. When I'm in need of that empowerment, when I'm in need to remember that I can do things and I have power to change my situation, and I need to like relight my fire within, this is a deck I go to, and again, I couldn't really be without it. Okay, I think we're on number 9, but I cheated. Of course I did. What did you expect? We know I'm an over-the-top and unhinged Aries, so of course I cheated and I have 2 honorable mentions. I'll put them at the end, but they don't count, okay? Don't come for me. They don't count because they're not really decks. Like, I use them as decks, but they're not technically an oracle or a tarot deck. So I have 2 cheats, which doesn't count. So technically I'm all good. Don't go and tell Sia and Meg I cheated. For now, my last 2 out of 10, we have the Zombie Tarot. Has to be part of my list of 10 decks if I could only keep 10, because this is, well, first of all, this is amazing. It's funny, it's cheeky, it's dark, but with twisted sense of humor, and yet it's profound and clever. And I mean, the box is very extra. The guidebook is great, by the way. If you have this guidebook, let me show you quickly. Everything is done in this like vintage style, and so the guidebook also looks very vintage, and at the end you have coupons like the 1960s, and the guidebook is very well written. If you are learning tarot and you don't really know how to read yet, this is a great beginner's deck, I think. The guidebook is great. It gives you just enough, and yet I think this makes court cards very easy to learn, which can be one of those things that's trickier when you're starting with tarot. Even though it's a bit gory and grim, people are definitely missing hands and fingers, and there's blood and gore a little bit. The fact that it's this vintage collage style makes it not gross, I think, because I don't really like super gross things in my tarot decks. Like, I'm not a horror girl, but this to me doesn't look horror at all. This to me is the perfect deck for when you need readings. Either there are gonna be sense of humor, cheeky, you need to remember to take things on the light sides, or this is also a fantastic shadow work deck. And for me, it's both. It both cracks me up, it both makes me laugh, and it also reads me to filth, and it does for everyone I read with too. So this is very deep deck, and it is deeper than it looks. The way that this world is constructed, it imagines that there's a zombie outbreak and everyone is freaking out, but after the first outbreak and after people have, you know, gone through the initial oh shit what's going on part, there's another level of there's another stage. So they are looking for a cure, and when they don't find one, you'll see along the progression of the decks that they start to learn how to live with the zombies, like humans try to cohabit, and it doesn't always end well, obviously, but it makes you wonder, how can we hate zombies so much when they used to be our loved ones, our family? How would we react if our moms or our kids or our uncles and or best friends were turned into zombies? Would we shoot them, or would we try and cohabit, even though that would entail a lot of arrangement and probably danger for us? So this will take you places you didn't think you would go in your life. In terms of readings, it's gonna show you the ugly side of a potential post-apocalyptic world. It's gonna show you how we humans try to survive, how we are in denial about the situation, and also it has a ton of sense of humor. And for that, this is invaluable deck in my collection, and it gives me readings no other decks gives. For me, it's very limiting to just use it for Halloween. I think this has its place all year round. I pull it out all year round because it's such a unique deck, and it gives you such a unique prism. And that's what I love about tarot. For me, tarot is kind of like a kaleidoscope. Depending which deck you look, you're looking at a certain prism. It's going to help you to see a certain facet of your life or your psyche or your imaginary life or someone else's life. But every deck is like a new prism, a new lens that you can look at something through, And that's why I have so many decks. That's why I love them so much. They all bring something unique to the table. And this definitely is one of the most unique ones. Okay, last one before we get into my honorable mention. Honorable mention. Honorable mention. I still can't say H's, okay? The French in me is like, what is that? You're pronouncing H's? I'm sorry. No. Huge surprise. I even surprised myself, like, who am I? Who is this girl? I didn't think that this would be in my top 10, but again, when I stood in front of my shelf and I was getting ready to film and I was doing a last review, last kind of like peek through my decks, I thought, this has to be in it. This has to be in it because if I can only keep 10, sometimes I need readings that are just what this can bring me. And this is the Golden Tarot by US Games. It's medieval inspired imagery, and this is really not my normal aesthetic. Like I've told you, it comes like this, by the way. There's a really chunky, really great guidebook, and this is not my regular imagery, although I have a very eclectic / chaotic style, chaotic taste, meaning I like everything and my wallet is very sad about it. I do prefer usually the fantasy or the modern. I do love historical decks too, but it's not what I have the most of. This does something to me that is unmatched really in terms of my other decks, so that's why it has its spot in my choices. Here are the backs. The cardstock is extremely glossy, so that's something you need to be aware of. Depending how you will look at it, it's gonna blind you. Don't hold this next to the sun, you're gonna lose an eye. The edges are golden, of course. It's called the Golden Tarot. If they didn't, it would be a travesty, honestly. So I'm glad that they gave us golden edges for the Golden Tarot. Like I was saying, this is a medieval collage style, which is not necessarily normally my vibe. But what this deck brings to the table that I really need sometimes is that atmosphere of the medieval ages and that particular medieval artwork where everybody looks miserable. Everyone in this deck, bar 1 or 2 people, look like they're having the worst time of their life. It's shit, they're poor, it's cold, they're hungry, there's probably Vikings at their door trying to get into the city. Poor woman is probably sick of having kids because she's on her 7th. Like, overall, it just looks like everyone is not having the best time. And you know what? Sometimes I can relate. And that's why I really like this deck, because when I'm in a grumpy ass mood, this sees me where I am and lets me be grumpy and lets me read the cards without judging me and without trying to make me feel better and without the whole love and light bullshit. Because if I'm grumpy, I just want to be grumpy, okay? Don't try and tell me to chin up. That's just gonna make me want to punch you in the face. I love that deck for that aspect of it. Sometimes, I mean more seriously, sometimes you're going through extremely difficult times and you're faced with challenges and it's just affecting your mental health, right? And in those moments, I think a deck like this, for me, has helped me immensely to meet me where I am, to help me get a new perspective. I mean, literally even the sun is like, fuck that, not today, Satan. I'm sick of your shit, little kid. Like, go and put some pencil. This deck is brilliant for that. I think when I'm truly in a tumultuous mood and I need to calm myself, but also I need to let myself be angry for a bit, or let myself be sad, or let myself be vulnerable and miserable, all of that, this deck lets me do that without judging me, without trying to make me feel better, like I was saying. And so that's all I want, really. And so that's why it has to be in my top 10. On top of that, this deck is extremely intuitive for me. There's so much going on in the cards, there's so much detail, symbolism, there's animals and plants and symbols, and that there's so much intuitively I get, so I channel very easily with this deck. This is one of the only ones actually who looks like she's smiling in this deck. She has this little smile that's like, I know something you don't. but I'm not gonna tell you though, you have to find out by yourself. I love her. She's badass. And she has a pet leopard, so you don't want to fuck with her. Okay, we're on to the honorable mentions, which are my two cheats that are not real cheats because they're not technically Oracle or Tarot decks, so it doesn't count. First up, we have How to Be a Wildflower deck. And yes, I know this is deck, but for me, it's more like a quote deck or an affirmation deck than really an Oracle deck, so don't cancel me. I still didn't cheat, in my personal opinion. One of those decks that I use every day of the year, all year long. In front of the card is an image, really beautiful, by Katie Daisy. So if you know her, you know her style. She's got a very unique style that you would recognize anywhere. And then on the back of those, you have quotes or very short text. And I use this all year long, every day, because I have this little holder, card holder, that is the perfect size to put one of those longer, narrower cards in. I change it every few days, pull a card and put it, and it sits next to my bed, and so I can reflect on it. So it's one of those that I couldn't see myself without, because I would miss it. I would miss not being able to pick a card and put it in my little stand and reflect on it when I'm going to bed or something. It brings some color, it brings a little moment of mindfulness. The artwork is amazing. The messages are nothing special, but it just does something to me. So I love this one, Follow the Spark. It's one of my favorite actually. And this one as well, Embrace the Dark. So cute. Finally, to wrap up the video and my honorable mentions, I have 3 decks. Yes, I know you're gonna be like, they're all like the same brand, so it doesn't count really, right? Those are Dixit cards. So if you don't know Dixit, it's a board game which entails you looking at certain cards and trying to make people guess which card you have chosen to make them guess without explaining what is on the card. I think that's what the game is about. Can you tell I've never played? Can you tell I don't care? I don't care about the board game. What I care about is the cards that you get in the board game. And because we know I'm extra and unhinged, I have 3 of the extensions available. I bought one and then I was gifted 2, and I love those cards so much. So I can't remember the names of the extensions I have, because you don't have to buy the board game, you can just buy the extensions. I don't remember which ones I have the name, because the box is in my drawer of doom, as you would have guessed. So I'll put the names in the description box. But as you can see, on every single card you have an image and no keywords. No keywords because it's not an Oracle deck, it's a board game. But the images are so whimsical and so beautiful, and they're gonna change style depending on the extension you get. So each extension is done by a different artist. This is a specific artist, this one is as well, and this one is actually the 10-year anniversary, so it's a collaborative deck. So this one will have different artists together. So whether you prefer something more cohesive, like those two, or whether you don't mind something that's more collective, then you've got pick of the bunch. I love Dixit so much for intuitive readings. Just listening to my intuition. I don't have anything like it, and yet it always hits the spot. So if I need to journal and I just need a card to start me on something, if I need to think about a spread or a prompt, if I need to let my imagination run loose, spur myself into constructing a story perhaps, if I need to pair something with an Oracle deck or a Tarot deck but I don't want a keyword because I don't want it to stop me, I can do all of that with Dixit. I can read it on its own. I can pair it with Tarot. I can pair it with Oracle decks. I've even gotten my friends to try it. I've pulled 3 cards for them, sent it to them by phone on WhatsApp, and I was like, okay, this is relevant to your situation. What are you seeing here? And the cards are so vibrant and so resonant that they were able to make the story of what was going on in their life perfectly. Like, it was so exactly representative of what was going on in their life. It was spooky, maybe even more accurate than a tarot or an oracle deck, because there's no keywords there's no structures. You get to let your intuition loose. You get to think outside the box, you're not constrained, you can just intuit, channel, have fun, play, and my inner child loves this so much. The 10th year anniversary is my least favorite because I'm less of a fan of the collaborative artwork, even though there's some gorgeous cards. I think I might actually turn this into an oracle deck. I might put keywords on it, and if I do, of course, I'm gonna film it and I'll share it with you. My second favorite is the one that was gifted to me the most recently, and again, I'll put the name of the extension below, but it looks like this. And I actually thought I could even turn it into a tarot deck. There's about 80 cards in each. There's definitely cards here that I think would be tarot deck appropriate, so that's something I'm thinking about, and if I do that, again, I'll film it and I'll share it with you. But my most favorite is this one. Put in the description box what it's called, but I love this particular artist. But they all speak to me. They all really do something to me. I couldn't do an only 10 decks without mentioning Dixit, because I use Dixit every week. Thank you so much if you've made it this far. I'm super appreciative. If you have made it this far, you can leave me a little flower in the comments. Let me know you have made it to the end of the video, and it will make me super happy. If you have any questions, if you want to chat or anything, leave me a comment. Thank you so much to Sia and to Meg for creating this tag. Definitely go check out their channels, and until my next video, I'm sending you so much good vibes, and keep navigating the waves of your soul. Bye!